Larkin, Texas Hill Country, April 1886. Cora Ashford stood alone outside the old chapel her father had built with his own hands, the pale sage-green dress catching the morning light, bluebonnets stretching blue and endless across the pasture behind her, like something spilled from heaven and never cleaned up. The whole valley bright and loud with color under a cloudless Texas sky. She hadn't meant for anyone to see her there in it. Not like this. Not on an ordinary Tuesday morning, with no ceremony to explain it. No reason for a dress like that to be out in daylight at all. She'd only wanted to feel the weight of the fabric again. Her mother's careful stitching still holding after 3 years, folded in a cedar trunk, before she put it away for another year and told herself, again, that she'd stopped waiting for a reason to wear it properly. The sound of hooves on the dirt road caught her by surprise. A man she didn't recognize was leading 2 horses toward the Ashford barn. Tall, broad through the shoulders, a week's dust on his brown duster coat, and he stopped mid-step when he saw her standing there among the flowers, in a dress clearly meant for something more than an ordinary Tuesday morning. "That's a beautiful dress," he said, simple and plain, an honest comment and nothing more. Cora's throat tightened before she could stop it. "It was meant for my wedding," she whispered. Margaret Ashford had spent the better part of a winter sewing that dress 3 years back, working by lamplight after the ranch chores were done, insisting on doing every stitch herself, even as her hands grew unsteady with the illness that would take her that spring. She'd chosen the pale sage silk over white, a dress that could be worn again afterward, to church, to a neighbor's supper, not locked away as something too fine for ordinary use, an impractical white satin gathering dust in a trunk for the rest of its life. She'd finished it 2 months before Cora's wedding date and had not lived to see her daughter wear it. Cora had planned to marry Wesley Combs in June of 1883, a rancher's son from the next valley over, steady and kind, the kind of match everyone in Larkin agreed made good sense. He died in May, 3 weeks before the wedding, caught in a flash flood crossing the Pedernales with a herd he was driving to market, the river rising faster than any man could outrun, on a horse already carrying more weight than it should. River crossings killed more Texas cattlemen than stampedes and gunfights combined, old-timers like to say. Not a dramatic danger, just an ordinary one, the kind every rancher in that country learned to calculate, and still, sometimes, calculated wrong. Cora had worn black that June instead of the dress her dying mother had made her. She'd folded the pale green silk into a cedar trunk in the attic and told herself she'd take it out again when she was ready to decide what it meant to her. A wedding dress with no groom, sewn by a mother who never got to see it used. A garment carrying 2 griefs instead of 1 joy. She was 30 now. She took the dress out every April when the bluebonnets came in, the same flowers that had been blooming the spring Wesley died, the same flowers her mother had loved best, and put it on for an hour, alone, before folding it away again for another year. It was not a healthy ritual exactly. It was simply the only one she had, the one thing that felt like keeping faith with 2 people at once, instead of choosing between grieving one properly and grieving the other. Her father had never once told her to stop. Her brother had asked, once, gently, and never asked again after seeing her face. Levi Hartwell had ridden into Larkin 4 days earlier, looking for spring roundup work, and Jonas Ashford, Cora's father, short-handed after losing 2 hands to a better-paying outfit near Austin, had taken him on without asking many questions beyond whether he could ride and rope, which Levi could do better than most men, twice his experience. He was 34, quiet in the manner of a man who'd spent years choosing not to stay anywhere long enough to be asked hard questions about why. His older brother Gideon had died on their family's ranch in East Texas 8 years back. A fence-mending accident, a spooked horse, nothing anyone could have prevented. Levi had left within the year, unable to look at land that had raised them both without seeing exactly where it had happened. A dozen outfits since, never one season longer than the last. He called it the drifter's life. Wasn't sure anymore if that was true or just the excuse he'd gotten comfortable using. He knew nothing of Wesley Combs, nothing of the wedding that never happened, nothing of a dress folded away in a cedar trunk. He'd simply been leading 2 horses back from the far pasture that Tuesday morning when he came around the chapel and found a woman standing alone in a field of bluebonnets, wearing something clearly meant for an occasion the empty churchyard around her didn't explain. He hadn't meant the compliment as anything more than what it was, an honest observation, offered plainly without weight behind it. He had no way of knowing it would land on something Cora had kept carefully banked for 3 years, 3 private Aprils nobody else had ever witnessed. Not her father, not her brother, nobody but the flowers and whatever God happened to be listening. "I'm sorry," Levi said, watching her face change, still holding the reins of both horses loosely in one hand. "I didn't mean to pry into something private." "You didn't pry," Cora said, though her voice was still unsteady. "You just asked an honest question I wasn't expecting to answer out loud." "You don't have to explain it to me," he said, plainly, without any of the careful, managing gentleness she'd grown so tired of receiving from well-meaning people in town who never quite knew what to say either. "I know," she said. "I think I might, anyway." She smoothed the green silk over her arm. "My mother made this. She died 2 months before I was set to wear it. The man I was supposed to marry died 3 weeks before the wedding itself, crossing the Pedernales with a herd. Same spring these flowers came in. I lost them both, inside one season, less than 2 months apart." She looked at the field around her, blue and unbothered by any of it. "I put it on every April when the bluebonnets bloom. I don't entirely know why. It doesn't fix anything. It just feels like the one thing I still owe both of them." Levi didn't offer the reassurance she half expected, that she'd find someone else, that grief eased with time, phrases she'd been handed 100 times already by people who meant well and understood nothing about the actual shape of what she carried. "My brother died on our family land 8 years ago," he said instead. "I haven't stayed anywhere longer than a season since. I understand keeping a thing you can't quite look at and can't quite put away either." Cora looked at him for a long moment, surprised by how plainly he'd matched her honesty with his own, without flinching, without reaching for a single one of the phrases she'd braced herself to hear, standing there in his dusty duster, like the words had cost him nothing at all to say. "Most people don't say that back," she said quietly. "Most people haven't carried something like it," Levi said, simply, without any need to dress the truth up in softer words than it deserved. He stayed on through the roundup, working the Ashford herd from dawn to dusk alongside Cora's father and brother, earning Jonas's grudging respect through simple, unglamorous proof, showing up before he was asked, working past when he could have stopped, mending the same fence twice without complaint, breaking a green colt nobody else wanted to take on. Cora found herself watching for him more than she meant to. He never brought up the dress again, never treated her differently for what she told him, simply continued being the same steady, plain-spoken presence he'd been from the first morning. It was, she realized somewhere in the second week, exactly what she hadn't known she needed. Someone who could hold what she'd told him without making her carry his reaction to it as well as her own grief. The blue bonnets that spring were the thickest Larkin had seen in years, old-timers said. Whole pastures gone blue enough to look like fallen sky. A wildflower most Texas ranch families had simply always lived alongside, without anyone yet calling it anything official. Just the flower that meant spring roundup had come. The fields turning color right when the herds needed moving to fresh grass, right when the rivers ran highest and most dangerous from the spring rains upstream. Levi mentioned one evening mending tack on the porch that he'd never seen anything like it in East Texas, where the land ran to pine forest and red clay instead of open blue fields. Cora told him her mother used to say the flowers came back every year, whether anyone deserved them or not, which had always struck her as either the kindest or the cruelest thing a person can say about grief, depending entirely on the day a person heard it. This story's already found its way to places I never imagined when I sat down to write it. Brazil, Nigeria, India, the Philippines, corners of the world I'm only starting to learn the names of. If Cora and Levi are keeping you good company tonight, a like helps more than you know. Tell me where you're watching from. I read every comment. Now, Jonas Ashford has buried a wife and nearly lost a daughter to grief already. And neither he nor anyone else on that ranch has any idea yet how soon his worst fear is about to stop being hypothetical. Jonas found Levi alone at the corral fence one evening, checking a gate latch that didn't need checking, the kind of small task a man invents when he's really waiting for someone to come find him. I buried my wife 2 months before that wedding was even supposed to happen, Jonas said, without preamble, and watched my daughter grieve them both at once instead of one at a time. Watched her mark that wedding date alone, in that dress, 3 Aprils running, and never once knew what to say to her about it that wouldn't make it worse. I'm not trying to hurt her, Levi said, evenly. Didn't say you were trying to, Jonas said, firmly. Said cowboys die on rivers and in stampedes and under spooked horses, same as Wesley did. And I don't know that I've got room left in me to watch my daughter love another man who does dangerous work for a living and lose him the same way. He looked at Levi directly. You're a good hand, best I've had in years. That's exactly why I'm telling you plainly instead of letting it go unsaid. I'd rather you hear my fear straight than have it turn into something meaner later. Levi was quiet a moment, turning that over honestly instead of arguing it away, his hands still resting on the gate latch. I can't promise you I won't die on a river crossing, Mr. Ashford, he said finally. Nobody could promise you that about Wesley either, and he still deserved the chance to try. I've spent 8 years running from land because I was scared of exactly what you're scared of. Running never actually protected anybody from losing something. It just made sure I never had anything worth losing in the first place, which isn't the same thing as safety, whatever it looks like from the outside. Jonas didn't answer that, but he didn't argue with it either, and something in his face suggested the words had landed harder than he wanted to admit. Neither of them knew it yet, but the fear they were arguing about was about to stop being a hypothetical one. He found Cora at the chapel 2 evenings later, not in the dress this time, just her everyday calico, sitting on the church steps, watching the last light go gold over the bluebonnet fields. The same steps where he'd first found her in green silk 2 weeks before. Your father talked to me, he said, sitting beside her. I heard, Cora said. Half the ranch probably heard, knowing him. He's never been a quiet man about his worries. He's not wrong to be afraid, Levi said. I've been thinking on it since. My brother's been dead 8 years, and I still haven't planted so much as a garden anywhere, because putting roots down felt like asking to lose something again. I've been living exactly as scared as your father is, just calling it drifting instead of fear, and dressing it up as a choice instead of admitting it was a wound I never let close. He's just been braver about saying his fear out loud than I've been about mine. That's the most honest thing anyone sent to me in 3 years, Cora said. I mean to keep being honest with you, Levi said. I'm not Wesley. I can't promise you the river won't take me too, someday, same as it took him. But I'd rather spend whatever time I get being honest with you about that than spend it pretending safety's a thing anybody in cattle country actually gets to choose. Cora looked out at the fields, blue and endless. Neither of them noticed the clouds already gathering 2 counties upstream, gray and heavy over hill country they couldn't see from Larkin at all. The flood came without much warning. That was simply how Texas hill country floods worked. A hard rain 2 counties upstream, the Pedernales rising 6 feet in an afternoon, while the sky above Larkin stayed nearly clear. The kind of danger that gave a rancher no honest chance to prepare for it. Cora's younger brother Daniel was driving 20 head across the low crossing when the water hit, the current taking his horse out from under him before he'd gone halfway. Both of them swept downstream toward a logjam that would kill a man as surely as any flood ever had. The cattle scattered in every direction, bawling, some of them going down in the current themselves. But nobody on that bank had eyes for anything except the boy in the water. Levi was already in the saddle and moving before anyone else had finished shouting, riding the bank hard until he found an angle to cut in ahead of the current, roping Daniel on the second throw and hauling him toward the shallows with his own horse straining against the pull of the water the entire way, its hooves scrambling for purchase on a bank that kept giving way beneath them. Jonas was already running along the bank himself, too far back to help, close enough to see every second of it. Cora watched from the bank, with her heart doing something violent in her chest. The whole scene arriving with the exact horror of having lived this fear once already, 3 years before, on this same river, at this same time of year. Blue flowers blooming stupid and beautiful on both banks, like nothing terrible had ever happened here before. Levi got Daniel to solid ground, both of them soaked and shaking, coughing up river water, and looked up to find Cora already running toward them, skirts hiked in both fists, past caring what anyone watching might make of it. "You're all right," she said, hands on his face, checking every inch of him she could reach, her own hands shaking now that the danger had passed. "You're all right." "I'm all right," Levi said, breathing hard. "So's your brother." That night, sitting on the porch with a blanket around her shoulders, though the evening was warm, Cora finally said the thing she'd been carrying since the riverbank, her voice steadier now than it had been by the water. "I watched you go into that water, and I thought I was about to lose you the exact same way I lost him," she said. "And underneath the fear, Levi, I finally understood something. I wasn't just scared of losing you. I was already far enough in that losing you would have broken something in me the way losing Wesley did. I didn't get there carefully. I got there anyway, somewhere between a table of cattle talk and a porch full of mended tack. I didn't plan on going into that water either," Levi said. "But I wasn't about to stand on the bank and lose your brother to the same river that already took someone you loved. Not when I had a rope and a horse and a reason strong enough to try." Jonas, standing in the doorway longer than either of them had noticed, cleared his throat, his boots scuffing against the boards as he stepped further into the light, a man who'd clearly been rehearsing what he meant to say for most of the evening. "I owe you my son's life," he said to Levi, his voice rough. "And I reckon I owe you an apology besides for standing at that corral fence trying to talk a good man out of loving my daughter, because I was scared of a river I can't actually control." He looked at Cora, something softening in his weathered face that hadn't softened in 3 long years. "Your mother used to tell me fear makes a poor foreman. Told her she was right and never once acted like it." He turned back toward the house. "I'm done arguing with the both of you. Do what you're going to do." Cora took the cedar trunk down from the attic the following week, not in April this time, not for the private ritual she'd kept for 3 years, but because she'd finally understood what she wanted to do with what was inside it. She found Levi mending fence on the east pasture, the bluebonnets past their peak now, fading towards summer green, the whole valley slowly shifting color the way it did every year at this same turn of the season. "I've worn this dress alone every April for 3 years," she said. grieving a wedding that never happened. I don't want to wear it that way anymore. What do you want instead? Levi asked, setting down the wire cutters, giving her his full attention. I want to actually get married in it, Cora said, not instead of grieving Wesley, alongside it. My mother made this dress with her own hands before she died, for a wedding that got taken from both of us. I think the kindest thing I could do for her memory, and his, is finally let it be what she intended. Not a monument to what didn't happen, but the actual dress I get married in. Are you asking me something, Cora Ashford? Levi said, quietly, gently. I'm telling you what I want, she said. I'd like you to be standing at the other end of it when I finally wear it properly. They married the following April in the same chapel, timed on purpose so the bluebonnets would be blooming full across the pasture again. Not erasing that first spring, but building a new one directly alongside it. The pastures turning the same brilliant blue they turned every April since long before either of them was born. She wore the pale green dress her mother had made, altered slightly by her own hand that winter. One small addition of her own stitching worked into the hem beside her mother's original work, not replacing what Margaret Ashford had made, just continuing it. Jonas walked her down the aisle himself and did not, for once, look like a man bracing for the worst the whole way there. He'd spent the winter, Cora noticed, saying Wesley's name out loud again without flinching, telling stories about him at supper, the way a family finally can once a fear has been faced instead of buried. Levi planted a garden that spring, the first one he'd put in the ground in 8 years, and told Cora it felt less like tempting loss than he'd expected, and more like finally admitting he had something worth staying still for. He wrote to his father in East Texas that same month, the first letter in years, and told him he'd found land worth putting roots into after all, and that he hoped someday his father might come see it for himself. The ranch prospered through that year and the ones after, the bluebonnets returning every April exactly as reliably as Cora's mother had always promised. And Cora found, standing in the field with Levi each spring after, that the flowers had finally stopped being only a marker of what she'd lost and started being, just as much, a marker of what she'd been brave enough to let herself have. I keep thinking about Cora alone in that churchyard every April. Nobody watching, nobody asking her to stop. 3 years of that. Nobody ever telling her it was time to move on, and nobody ever quite knowing how to help her do it either. And what finally changed wasn't somebody telling her to move on. It was Levi standing in the same flowers, admitting his own 8 years of running. That's the whole turn. Not advice, not time healing anything on its own, just somebody else finally being honest first, in a field of flowers that never once asked either of them to explain themselves. I think about Jonas too, a father who'd already buried a wife and watched his daughter grieve alone for 3 years, standing at a corral fence, trying to protect her from a fear he never named, until Levi made him say it out loud. It took a flood and a rope and his own son pulled out of the water alive before he could stop arguing with a fear that had already made up its mind about what safety was supposed to look like. Sometimes, the people who love us hardest are the ones most afraid to let us try. Thank you, truly, for riding with me today. Until next time, friend, keep riding.